All right, thanks. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
This is kind of the second public meeting that we've had. So, and to be honest with you, it's the same presentation we had on, I think, the 20th or the 16th?
16th.
Whenever, the 16th. So we thought that it would be important to at least have several nights when people could listen to what we had to say. So, welcome, and I'll go ahead and start. As Ellen said, we've been working as a group for about a year, maybe a little bit more than a year. And we began initially by working with the staff to develop a space needs program for the library. Some of you had probably attended other meetings, so we did go through a whole space needs analysis, and we developed some alternative floor plans. And basically these floor plans, and that continues this evening, are simply illustrations of possibilities of how the library could be renovated and expanded. What I'll show you tonight is probably the closest to reality, but we've looked at, I don't know, probably 8 or 10 different options over the last months. And we've really looked at different ways and we've addressed a number of different things that have been important in library design in the region. All of these things are obviously important, and just wanted to let you know that we've done that. I guess about a year ago, maybe it was even 2 years ago, there was the visioning exercise from an outside consultant, and these were some of the things that came out of it, you know, including more space for collections, i.e. more shelving, to be quite honest with you, more study space, more technology, place for teens, all of which are important, and quite frankly we're seeing throughout the region in terms of library design. The library has some pretty unique aspects. It's in pretty good shape. It has, it doesn't leak. Believe it or not, we work on plenty of projects where the building envelope is not good, but at least this library exterior structure seems to be good. The roof seems to be good. You've got some unique features, including the mosaic walls at the end of the building. Always something that we've been keeping into of importance. You have what's known as the flood wall in front of the library. That's just not a seating wall, but it's something that apparently the county had required a number of years ago in case water backs up from the big underground stormwater detention facilities, and it actually goes back uphill, and so that's why that wall kind of is level at the top, but slopes at the bottom following the grades. We've talked about the interior of the library. There are some things that work fine. There's some things that don't. There's a lot of archaic aspects to the library in terms of its lighting, the HVAC system. Some of the library does not meet ADA standards, including the width of the aisles between the stacks. The HVAC system has some good components. The basic air handling units and condensing units and chillers seem to be in pretty good shape. Some of those are on the roof at this point. Plumbing is not in great shape, and needless to say, does not meet current standards from the standpoint of the number of plumbing fixtures, restroom fixtures, as well as spacing and ADA requirements. You all know that the roof is filled with photovoltaics, and so that's something that I know that the town wants to continue. It's been a system that seems to work well. So when we begin to talk about expansion and or renovation, just keep in mind that there's limited parking. Those of you who come when there's big events know that. And there are lots of different constraints, from the below-grade parking on that side of the library to the mosaic wall here to the vegetation, the trees that we all know are pretty important. We know that the library has some significance. This is a picture of the original library, a very simple kind of international style building. It was an L-shaped building. It was designed like many libraries were in the 50s, with high windows so that you could line the exterior walls with shelving up to a certain height, generally 7 feet. And so it gave you maximum area for shelving. What it didn't do is give you any views of anything but the sky as you looked out from the windows, and it obviously did not enable folks who were outside to see what was going on inside. But it was a published library and a very, very simple library. You know that we talked about the mosaic. We know that you kind of walk around to find the front door from the parking lot. We know that the community center also has an entrance from the parking lot. You really don't see a whole lot of a library from the parking lot. You really don't see a whole lot of the entrance to the community center. In fact, I came here for a meeting, I don't know, 6 months ago to the community center, not thinking, because I've always gone in the library, and I couldn't find the door. I said, where's the entrance? And I started to walk around until I realized that you've got these giant banana plants and other things that are quite nice, but frankly hide the entrance. And so that's one thing we'll talk about. So you've got a certain number of existing conditions. This is the existing library in the community center, the parking lot. Access the library this way. You access the library right now into what I'll euphemistically call the rotunda, or the open space, but it's not always open, as you all know. It's only open certain times. And so, but people can come in this way. They obviously come in the front door, and frankly, they can come from the community center through a kind of a circuitous way through the corridor system. There is a setback. There's some magnificent trees, and there's the mosaic. And so we've started by saying, where in the world are we going to expand this library if, in fact, it needs to be expanded? And that's been a challenge. You know, you've got the flagpole and the walkway to get to it. It doesn't really lead you anyplace. Despite the fact that you can walk to the flagpole, it doesn't really continue to the library, although we all know that people do walk up that way and hop over the wall to get to the library. But that whole notion of being a pedestrian-friendly public building, I think, is an important one. And so if there's a way that we can get into the library, encourage people to get off buses or leave their bicycles over here, there's some bike racks, you know, to make that access to the library pleasant for you, whether you drive to the library or whether you walk to the library or ride your bike to the library. So all these things are important, and as a public building, I think it's important to recognize that fact. So the existing plan of the library looks like this. Some of the library is really, I'll say, outside the library. These 2 computer labs, there's some network rooms are outside the library. And so we're starting from that standpoint. We know that one of the critical aspects of any library is patron flow, how you're getting into the library, how you're going to find what you're looking for, where the staff is so that they can monitor activity in the library. In this day and age, that's pretty important in any public building, to make sure that somebody is monitoring activity. Want to make sure you can house the collection. We've talked at length about the number of volumes to be housed. We've talked about the height of your stacks. You notice that in a lot of newer libraries, stacks have been lowered down to 60 inches or 66 inches, partly to open up libraries you can see. But frankly, as soon as you begin to lower the stacks, you need more of them, because you've just lost about 25 to 30% of the capacity to house books. And one of the things we've heard over and over again is that this is a library that has a lot of written volumes, a lot of written material, and they want to keep it. And it's the kind of library where you want to come in and browse and to have the availability of those books. One of the issues was staff space. Those of you who've been in the staff area know that it's pretty inadequate. It's certainly not generous, and the staff sort of sits on top of each other, and it's probably a staff room storage room at this point for those of you who've seen it. So, you know, having a reasonable place to work, I think, is something that any professional staff needs to have. And while most staff is probably out on the floor interacting with patrons, they still need a place to do the kind of work they need to do. One of the things we've talked a lot about is the front door. Where is the front door? Does there need to be only one front door? And one of the things you'll find that has come out of this whole process is there's always been a formal front door, but people have accessed the library from so many different directions that perhaps there doesn't need to be a front door, but there needs to be a way of connecting a lot of the different functions so that that accessibility is there, yet still having people who want to find the library for the first time be able to find it and know where you're supposed to go. So all these issues have been considered and discussed, and one of our goals tonight, as it was in the previous meeting, is to listen to people's reaction. And we're collecting reactions at this point, so at the next stage we can hopefully begin to incorporate some of the suggestions, and we've had good suggestions in the past. Early options looked at just renovating and reorganizing the existing library, and quite frankly what that did is it lost a lot of the patron space, partly because we're having to increase restroom facilities to meet code. We're widening aisles between the stacks. We're providing a little bit better space for the staff, and so all of a sudden that eats into the public space. We looked at expanding toward the front of the library, but that impacted some trees because we felt like we couldn't touch the mosaic. Then we said, well, maybe we can relocate it, so we looked at going out in that direction and coming in this direction, but trying to kind of zigzag the building around the primary trees. That was the first concepts. We actually then, one rainy night last summer, actually staked out the options for the council, and they all kind of looked at what the impact might be. And then we came back and kind of talked about some of the things that they felt were, whoops, whoa, hit too many of these. That wasn't supposed to happen. I'm sorry. And we began to talk about what's important. And one of the things that was important was this connection to the community center. Make sure that that connection works somehow. That it felt like perhaps we were tying our hands behind our back by only looking at coming out into the green space. And they said, gee, would it help to come out in the parking lot? Would it help to come out in this area? Would it help to come out over that depressed parking area where the police park? Be more open to some of those suggestions. Save the trees. Issues of adding glass to the facade so that people can see in. That's a marketing opportunity, actually, for the library. And it's frankly a safety thing. One of the best security issues is glass. You can see what's on the other side. And frankly, when people think they can be seen, they often behave a little bit better. So that was one of the issues. Leave the mural if possible, the mosaic. And the library issues, these were things that are site issues that affect all of you. And the library issues, they wanted to be flexible, because we've all realized that libraries have changed over the last 30 years, and they continue to change, perhaps exponentially. And part of that has to do with just technology. And, how do people bring their handheld devices in and access databases and get information in different ways? So important elements of change. So make it flexible. Don't make it so that it can't change over the years. One of the things that they talked about was trying to strengthen the corridor, or straighten the corridor between the community center, perhaps make a connection between the reception desk at the community center so that people can see the library. Add group study rooms, add a teen room, all important. So where we are today is in yellow is an expansion, the tan is renovation. kind of existing space, and the white is what's there. So this document really illustrates the community center and the library as a whole, if you will. So we're illustrating actually expanding the library to the, I'll call it the front, expanding the library into that courtyard where you currently walk through to get to the kind of the rotunda area in the middle here, to really capture more of the space contiguous to the library. So we're illustrating actually now a brand new entrance that would come in from parking, and it would be matched perhaps with a new entrance at the community center. So as you drive in, one typically expects to park and find a front door. And so we thought that was important, Bringing up a sidewalk from this sidewalk and getting in. And while the document illustrates kind of doing nothing with the flagpole, we've had lots of suggestions on, gee, can we now develop something in this library or in the open space, maybe move the flagpoles, but in any case, don't just leave it there with no place to go. Good suggestion. So we're illustrating now coming in and actually changing and having the adult area here, the children area here, building a new program room, a room that, like this, where there could be story hour for the children, could have public meetings, could have video conference, could plug in or pipe in a presidential debate and people could come and talk about it, whatever. So a flexible space, renovate this area for staff, have the access, service access here, relocate the seniors room right here and add a new seniors office adjacent to it. Begin to straighten out this corridor, which now kind of goes through here and capture, there's an outdoor area, kind of reorient it myself here, right out in that way, where it's outside, but incorporate that in the inside so that if one were to come in from the community center and you're at the reception desk, you could come straight down into the library. So make that visual connection. And then replace the two computer rooms that are currently over here, and which happens right here. Make those glass rooms so they can be seen both from the library as well as from the corridor, and relocate the control desk, the service desk right here, who has then a view of pretty much everything. Incorporate larger restrooms. So this is the basic plan concept without all those colors, so that you can basically see that this blue area becomes the library and is then associated with the community center. There's also been discussion about straightening this corridor because you make that little jog because of this office, which could be relocated, and really have a core, if you will, and just make it a little bit more accessible and understandable. That's just a larger view of the same plan. But adult area, as I said, children's area, we're illustrating at this point some group study rooms, some accessible from this side, some from the children's side, brand new restrooms, new mechanical, this program room, staff, computer rooms, seniors room, and kind of an open area where there'd be computers and display and that sort of thing. One of the suggestions made last meeting was to try to bring some natural light right in the center of the library, either by a skylight or something that would flood that center part with the library. We're still using, as we're not changing those high walls, they stay, and the mosaic stays up to this point, but from here this becomes more of a glass wall as the new wall, so that you can see in and you can sit and look outside. Excuse me. And so we're taking advantage of the fact that we do have those high walls. We're also taking advantage of the glass. Oops, wrong. Sort of went backwards, excuse me. We've developed some very quick character sketches just to give an idea. I've not shown all the photovoltaics on the roof, which I guess is obvious. But we're illustrating the fact that the library could basically be an expansion of what it is today without trying to change it so much that it looked like something from Mars that was attached to the library, but to be pretty sensitive to the existing library. What you see here is an indication of a new entrance. This is that new program room and service, an indication of a new entrance. This is from Philadelphia, illustrating the mosaic. This is that outdoor area where we're talking about enclosing it so that there could be that straight shot into the library. And you can begin to see an indication of glass. Don't take it literally. This is a very conceptual document. From a person's view as they walk down Philadelphia, and you can see we've have a photo montage of actually the mosaic as it is today, and then it would turn the corner. We'd keep a lot of glass, just a closer view so you can get an idea. A basic idea from parking as you come in. Once again, an indication of a roof and glass. We've pulled a wall out from the adjacent to the restrooms. That could be special. It could be stone. It could be a different material. It could have a sign on it, but pull you into the library where there'd be a vestibule. Closer view of that kind of indication. An indication of repeating something at the community center. You can simply see the relationship. Once again, a conceptual idea. And this is where we're talking about infilling that outdoor area. Currently, all these columns, their steel columns exist. We would simply infill that with glass so that you can make that connection. And we really would not be touching any part of this library at all. So this kind of gives you a big picture overview of some of the thoughts. I'll kind of come back to perhaps an earlier view, but one that gives you an idea of plan and the fact that we've located these trees. You can see we've tried to pull away from the drip line so that the trees would not be harmed. We'd have to be very careful with that. What happens to the flagpole is sort of unknown at this point. There being comments, good comments, about a gathering spot in the front where people can meet their friends and say, gee, I'll meet you at the library, and moms with their strollers and kids, or others simply no. But the fact that you're not kind of walking around the corner to get to the front door, but there could be a vestibule that's glass, a little bit of a beacon. You know where you're going. It's safe. You can drop somebody off and almost undercover walk right into the library. Or if you have a child and you want to pick that child up, they can be waiting right in this area of the plan. And we thought we'd put a couple of benches, and when mom or dad pulls up, they can just simply come out and get in the car. So important elements of access, as well as kind of the internal issues that we've been working with Ellen and her staff on in terms of how the library might be organized. So once again, just a kind of a very quick overview, and we'd love to hear some comments. And arms just shot right up, so that's good. So yes, ma'am.
I was of course interested in the new Silver Spring Library and watching it go up, and I think the building is very beautiful. However, I think there are some things about it that are not user-friendly that I would not want to see us use here. Specifically, the glass, while it's very lovely from the outside, because it's not tinted on a sunny day, it can be really blinding. I've been in there and had to leave because it was so difficult. The other thing that I find difficult about that library is that it's very hard to find a quiet space because it's so open. because you move from one floor to the other, and all the noise from above just drifts down, especially from the children's room. And it's just not fun to be there when it's like that, and it's usually like that because there's no culture of being quiet there. And I didn't see that as one of the values cited, some quiet space, and I think that's essential. And I think the staff here does a really good job of trying to make sure that people are respectful. Along with that, I think there should be a designated area for phone calls with a door, and no other place may a phone be used, because it's really become unbearable in libraries to constantly hear people pretending they're going off in a little corner and can't be heard, chatting on their phone, and not making eye contact as though they're invisible. And I would want to see that accounted for in some way.
I would just add that, excuse me, it is our policy to ask people with cell phones to go out to the lobby or the community center. We may miss some people, but...
You're very good about that here.
Yeah.
I'm saying if we can have a built-in place for that, especially...
the community center lobby. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No, Mel, that makes sense here. I don't want to see more open space. I want to see more contained spaces, truthfully, with their own uses. So that if you want a place where you can talk, you can have a door and close it. If you want a place where you can sit and read a magazine, it doesn't have to be silent, but you don't want to hear people chatting either. And I would like to see some of those values retained and emphasized in a library.
Okay.
I like the what you said about the glass walls. I think overall it's really excellent. I really do like the fact that the main entrance now is where it is, and the expansion into the community center really opens it up too. I question whether or not we need so much glass along that side. It seems to me excessive. Again, as you said before, it does take away from the amount of shelf space too, to have that kind of floor-to-ceiling look with the glass in it. And on that side, it's really only looking out onto Philadelphia Avenue. So I would vote for, having less large glass continuous spaces there.
Okay, this gentleman, and then the gentleman in the back,
Okay,
and then we'll move over this way.
What do you do with the existing wall on the right side there on the picture?
The flood wall?
The flood wall.
The flood wall.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. What we plan to do is currently, sorry, I've got so many little different things. Right now that flood wall is back here. What we do is we actually make the exterior of the library the flood wall. And so that first 18 inches or whatever becomes a poured concrete wall and becomes, in effect, the barrier that used to be just a wall sticking up. And then the glass can start above that.
I've noticed when I use the library that, especially when around 3 or 4 o'clock p.m., a lot of kids are hanging out there. It's a nice meeting area. I don't know if with the what you're proposing with a new entrance, if you're kind of losing that kind of informal meeting space for them. And then my question is, with this new proposal, what kind of increase are you talking about in terms of square footage?
We're talking about going from about 9,600 square feet to approximately 14,500 square feet.
So is it like 30%?
Well, that's
50%?
No, it's not quite 50%.
40%.
40%. And that's a plus or minus because, as I said, think of these as pretty conceptual. And so if we find and we work with an arborist and say, gee, we can't be quite that close to that tree, we need to move back 4 feet, that's going to adjust things.
We certainly have to talk to our arborist.
Oh, I know that. But I think that's why I caution you to take everything totally literally at this point. I think that these are conceptual plans, these are conceptual three-dimensional illustrations to get this kind of discussion going. So, yes, sir, in the back.
You covered my question, which was, you look like you're building over what's now the flood wall.
Correct.
I'm good.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I applaud your effort to change the entrance. I think that's a really great idea. I like some of the rearrangement of the space, but I do feel as though there needs to be more shelf space, especially for adult books.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just doesn't look like enough to hold the collection, even if it's culled a lot. Two other things sort of stick out in my mind as I look at it. Is there any place for people to sit down and put their stuff and put a laptop down and work? It doesn't look like there are any tables or space for tables there. And also, where would magazines go?
Okay, I'll try to respond to all those. We think that we have duplicated the number of stacks that are currently there. That will be confirmed.
I was already at the previous
Yes.
meeting, and I brought up a lot of that, and
Yep.
you told me, or you told the whole group, how you reached the
Correct.
size of
Mhm.
shelf space that we had, but it seemed to me that what you used for an average, or which I guess is the industry standard, was too small. Like you said that an inch was the average you used for a book, and adult books, I mean,
They can be
a lot of
bigger.
them were a lot bigger than that.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so it seemed like there was not enough space allotted to shelve the collection.
Okay, well, that'll be confirmed as this get developed. A couple of things. Just in this illustration, each of these are tables.
Oh, okay.
And they would all have power, whether they have individual lights on them or whatever. One of the things we know is we need lots and lots of power. And because so much of the existing library is a slab on grade, we don't want to dig up all the slab, especially if there were any water problems. So one of the issues we often try to do is make sure tables are near columns so that we can pull power down columns. If we can build a wall, we can then have plenty of wall outlets, and tables are close to wall outlets. We like people to be able to look outside, so that sort of combines that. We were talking about potentially having an area someplace down here for periodicals, where potentially you can come in, sit down, grab a newspaper or magazine, and kind of in a casual way look outside. So it's not really developed. From the standpoint of quiet things, this program room that we described as a room like this, and we've done this in another library, we really think of this as a flexible space. And one of the libraries we worked on, we actually have a room like this, and it's filled with tables and floor outlets, because this is now built on top of what's green space right now. But we can put a grid of floor outlets, put tables that are 18 inches by whatever. They're very lightweight. They can fold up very easily. And so it can be used as a quiet study room when nothing else is going on. And then very quickly, if there's an event, fold them up, put them in the storage room here. And so, we think of this as a multi-purpose space. And in one case, the library I was talking about, this was actually a sliding glass wall, so that, the wall opens up. You go in there and you sit and you study. There's an event that's scheduled for 3 o'clock, and at 2 o'clock the tables are, folded up. So that's one way of looking at it. Each of these rooms, we call them group study. That's what GS is. Those group study rooms can be quiet or they can be noisy, depending upon who's there. If the kids are coming after school and they're working on a group project, then they go in and, it's going to be a noisy room. It's going to be an activity space. If there's nobody here and you want to get away, just go in and close the door. So part of that becomes administrative, and whether you have to sign up for a room, whether the room is simply open to anybody. But we recognize the fact that most libraries today need a variety of spaces, both quiet and more active spaces. Yes, sir.
I live about as close to the library as you could possibly get. I talk about the glass walls. I'm literally a stone throw from the glass.
Uh-huh.
And but a couple of the features, I think the flagpole serves a purpose of giving an identity to the building. I mean, most of the traffic that's going to pass this building is going to be on Philadelphia Avenue.
Correct.
And it's kind of a difficult building to figure out what it is. And when you see a flagpole, you have a sense it's some sort of civic institution of some sort.
Mhm.
It calls your attention to more to the function of the building. I
Sorry.
think it gives it a placing for the building.
I don't know how to get back.
Um,
Sorry, I have no idea what I did. Huh. I'm not sure where the guy is who.
If you just reopen PowerPoint, go to open,
Is the
resend it. should-
PowerPoint-
I mean, I can't do it with this little clicker. I don't have any control here.
He's here.
All right, sorry. There he is. That's what happens when you have too many things in your hand.
Do
Sorry.
you want another chair up there to put something out?
No, it's just that I'm trying to point and advance and write, so it's all
I'm in
right.
favor of keeping the flagpole. I think it is. Also, I mean, I actually prefer this alternative design to the others you presented,
Mhm.
because you preserve the greenery, the trees and everything. But the one thing is, I'm a frequent user of the library, and I'm actually put off by the Silver Spring. I thought it was going to be unpopular mentioning the glass, everybody like that. I don't find glass that welcoming for a library. I don't want people looking in at me, and I don't want to be looking out at the street. And I like to feel, and I look at the great reading rooms. They're not huge windows. I mean, they're places that, even when the mansion puts up a library, it's just sort of an enclosed space, you know. And I want to be secluded. I want to be able to concentrate on the books and not look at traffic outside. And I mean, I understand the need for light, and I think some of the great reading rooms actually have light coming in from a dome.
Correct.
And so I understand that there's a certain need for light, but I would be careful about glass in it, given the function of the library. And also, when you're talking about, I think one of my favorite parts of the library are those chairs where you can sit right now. I mean, it's cozy, and then you can take your book and really be on your own. You're not even at tables facing other people. So I would try to create spaces like that where people can go off into their own concentration
I agree
in a
with you.
comfortable manner.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm going to present the opposite view, which is, I've been looking at that flagpole space and thinking, boy, there'd be more room for the adult bookshelf area possibly, and maybe opening up where the wall is, where you said you wanted to put the magazines. You could have a little bit more space there for that, and the flagpole can be moved. I mean, it's not like a tree where you can't move the tree. Plus, you might have trouble with that tree over there on the corner. Like you said, you might have to move the wall back a little bit. But the flagpole space, it looks like quite a lot of square feet there. And I also like the natural light, whether it comes from the windows on the wall. I think you showed a design last spring or summer where there was a slant in the roof, and,
Yeah.
and the top was glass. So you have the natural light coming in that way, which was very, I like that.
Well, I think, one of the things that is good is most design work, I think, that where you care about who your client is, you listen to what their needs and their sense of values are, and you try to respond. In the case of Silver Spring, they had a vision of doing something quite different than what you folks are trying to do. By all means, they did not want a solid building. They were looking for something that became a lantern. So that's fine. That may not be for you folks. So that's one of the reasons why we're listening to this kind of discussion, so that we can respond with something that fits with Tacoma Park and not necessarily downtown Silver Spring.
Silver Spring is unique. There's a lot of new libraries that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
They all use a lot of glass, and I don't
Yeah.
find them welcoming.
I'm with you.
Okay, this
I agree. I'm going to talk about the children's section.
Sure.
Totally forget the glass, but the children's section is a very strange shape, and right now we have some fabulous programs for children. And very, very popular. A lot of kids, and they come straight from the outside door, straight in the kids' room. Now that looks like you have to go. I can see it being very loud, very chaotic, getting from the outside door to the kids' room, and there doesn't seem big space If you want to get a program in the other rooms, you go in the door to the kids' space and back to the program room. You're all over the place. And you should come in the outside door, right to the kids' room, right to the program, and have room for it. There's no room in the kids' room for a big program.
We wouldn't have programs in the kids' room, we'd have them in the program.
My concern that is getting them to there.
Well, you'd come directly in.
What about cattle prods?
And there are no windows proposed in the program.
I'm sorry?
No windows proposed.
I suspect there'd be some windows in here.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, there's a possibility that you could, you know, come in and out if you know, have an outside door for whatever reason. So let me keep coming around the room. Yes, sir.
What happened to the teen room idea?
This is the teen area right here, in this case. Yes, yes. I think one of the things you want to do is in fact, initial program actually had another group study room right in the teens room, and that might happen as well. But I think that you're going to want to see and hear what's going on, quite frankly.
Have you had any community engagement with younger people about the library? Because I hear what we like and I sort of agree, but we have a different view of library and books and space. And I just wonder if you've spent any time with the teens who use the library.
I should tell you, not here. We did in another library, actually out in Leesburg, and spent 4 afternoons with the kids. I had to come in and we talked about how they use the library. And, you know, teens are funny because what's a teen area? Is it, you know, 10 to 12? Is it 12 to 16? Is it, you know, what is it? And everybody has a different concept of what a teen is. And so we had them actually design a teen room. We gave them big brown paper on the floor, and the things they came up with were they did not want it to be institutional in terms of its character, so curves were good. They did not. We thought, oh, gee, they're going to, and this was going to be a separate, huge room. It's like 3,000 square feet. Somebody gave the money for this, and we thought they'd want music. No music. We all have our own headset. We're going to listen to what we want. We want to sit on the floor. We want to curl up on a couch. You know, it's kind of the Starbucks model, to be perfectly honest with you. And so, and yet they wanted computers, obviously. So those are the big things. We also had a message board. We had a TV. We had some vending. And we've done this in other libraries where there has been space. But you're in a situation where there are a lot of things you might want to do, but you also have a fairly limited area to do it in. So there needs to be some decisions about what you can do and what you can't do and what you want to do, and those are things we're listening to.
I just mentioned at the last meeting we had on the 16th, there was a group of younger teens who came to the meeting and actually presented a petition to us asking for
That's right.
a space where parents could read to kids. And one thing we don't have now at all is a space for young adult books. There are bookcases outside the children's room. There's literally no dedicated space for library books. And that was a big part of why we wanted this space.
Yes.
To say.
Getting back to the glass, about 25 years ago, we renovated our house, and we had a lot of options that were presented in terms of not allowing certain types of light in, and not allowing other types in terms of you know, infrared light and so forth. It turned out to be quite a disappointment, and not really what. It didn't work out like we thought it was going to work out. Well, that's 25 years ago, and I'm wondering, you know, now I know people wear glasses, they change. You know, you see buildings with, you know, like dark brown glass, or you know, tan glass, or silver, or blue. Is that something that could acclimate itself to the amount of sunlight that's
Absolutely. When we specify glass these days, it's always thermally broken glass, so there's at least 2 panes, sometimes 3 panes of glass. And the way you specify glass is you specify each one of those panes and the characteristics of them. So we can specify how many, what kind of UV can get through. We can specify the amount of light that's reflected and the amount of light that allows in, all the way from mirror glass, which everybody hates, to totally clear glass, but nothing's really totally clear. You know, we'll use low E glass. So there's all kinds of things you can do with glass these days to enable you to control the vision, heat gain. Glass is a good material these days, just as a building material. So, yes, ma'am. I know you've had your hand up.
I'm thinking about the entrances. One, I do like the new entrances. It was mentioned at the last meeting, and I think you made a note of it, is that the entrance down here to the library, the 2 sets of doors, the second set should be moved in further, so that there's more of a vestibule. I think you kind of
absolutely.
mentioned that. But my concern is up at the top, it's kind of small-ish. Well, anyway, on the diagram, it looks small-ish. When you're coming in near the seniors' room, I imagine that's if you want to cut off the library from the community center on weekends, as it was mentioned, that's probably some kind of a fire door. I'm concerned about it looking inviting, you know, not just another corridor door, you know, so that people want to come into the library. I mean, just something artistic entrance. But the other thing is, when you look at the kids' room, I'm not feeling good about where the door is. I think that I don't know where the kids are coming in more from the community center or from the front door right now.
I suspect they're coming more from the front door.
Okay, then I think that the entrance can be shifted down a third or something, or maybe so that there's more of a straight walk into the children's room.
Okay. No,
It looks like you need to shift.
yeah, I mean, that's a good suggestion, and I think it works. I think your comment about the door up here is correct. Just to give you a sense of scale, that dimension across there is approximately 8 feet, and by the time you get down here, it's like like 14 feet wide. So we're trying not to make this just a corridor, but a space. And if these walls are glass, really the space you perceive is that space, because, you know, with a little color on that wall all of a sudden and a view outside, you're not walking down a corridor as much as you're walking through an activity.
I kind of pictured that part, but the room itself, I'm saying that when it's closed, if it's closed, I would still like to see that it's inviting.
No, I agree with you. I agree. And to be quite honest with you, this may not have to be closed. It could be held open and tied to the fire alarm system, so when the fire alarm system goes off, it's closed. That's kind of an operational thing that we would want to talk to both the library and the community center. And to be quite honest with you, we've not been able to find any drawings of the community center that actually have all the code analysis for them. So.
The other thing was the program room, regarding those 2 storage rooms, and you're talking about the tables that you could fold up and put to the side. Having been an election judge and having to push the cafeteria tables over, okay, and then how horrible it feels in that room all day long, would the storage rooms be dedicated to putting the tables in and or the chairs that have to be there for the other types of events? I would like to be able to, so that you feel like this event is this event.
Yep. No,
and now it's the study time, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of chairs or the tables that are in cafeterias are not light, and they're not easily adjustable. But there's been huge changes in the kind of furniture that's available. But yes, the idea would be, and this storage room is from this side, this storage room is from the staff side. But frankly, it's simply we know we need storage. We haven't sized it. We're not sure what's going in it. But I think this is more of an indication that could happen. Could be that the storage room needs to get bigger and the program room a little smaller. Those are some things that we would adjust.
10 by 10 is about from here to here to about there. It's not that big. I mean, depending on what kind of furniture you're storing in.
Right. So we haven't really gotten into actually all the furniture. Once again, this is an illustration simply to give people a sense of scale and what can fit more than here it is. Yes, ma'am.
changes to the entrance, and in the beginning you talked about how people enter the library and also by foot and by bicycle. And then as the discussion went on, you talked about how it would be dropped off by car. Mm-hmm. And I see lots of people entering, from all directions and hopping over that wall. And so I just would like to see how people pedestrians in Point, I noticed you lined up to the path that goes to the elementary school up the hill.
Right.
So I assume that you will have kids running across that path, across the parking lot. And I would like to see that maybe even raised and look like a crosswalk, or painted like a crosswalk. Right. And then address also, when you're on your bicycle, we're going to lose the covered parking from the bikes. There's 4 new ones that are lovely signs that were put up. And I'd like to see that dedicated on the parking lot itself, and maybe even covered if we can push it. The bikes parking that you mentioned is actually bike share parking, and it's
right.
capital bike share, and
right.
you can't park your bike there. So I think yes, thanks.
That's good. No, these are all good things. Yes, ma'am.
Let's see, I want to speak first about the flood wall. I frequently visit the library on Tuesdays, which is the story hour time. And when I come out at about 12 o'clock, there are, I'd say, 6, 7, 8 nannies sitting there with their charges on that wall talking. And I think they sit there probably for 30, 40 minutes. So it's sort of similar to what you mentioned, the late afternoon talk.
Mm-hmm.
But this is another group that uses that wall to sit on. So where might they gather or whatever?
If we lose the wall, where
right.
do they go?
Yeah.
It could very well be that, there is the bus stop down here as well. And it could be that, maybe the library extends down in this direction, a wall, a place to gather. We want to look at the parking lot too in terms of the width, and you can see that we've lost a couple of parking spaces here, but by the same token, I know that the parking spaces are very, very wide, and potentially we can restripe and not lose parking and still gain some waiting area. So it's a good suggestion. I think it's just something we need to address. It just hadn't done it.
I have not been at any of the other meetings, so I don't know the discussions about the mosaic at the end of the building. I'm not a fan of it, and I see all that space out there, and we're willing to sacrifice trees by coming in this direction, but we're not willing to sacrifice that wall and use more of that peninsula to go that direction. So it's just a comment.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into a big fight about the mosaic.
No. And to be quite honest with you, there are a couple of constraints that perhaps are not totally obvious. Mm-hmm. One is this big transformer that sits right here. So here's the existing corner of the building, and that's the actual flood wall right now. We haven't moved that. Mm-hmm. So those of you, and of course you've got the little garden out here as well. But there's a major piece of electronic equipment there that it can be moved. It's just money. It's a lot of things are just money. Anything can happen technically. So that was one of the constraints. The other is this gigantic concrete construction to get down to that area. So we never could
to the electrical stuff?
No, this actually goes down to the parking, down to the police parking. So you've got a fairly limited amount of space here. You might take a walk over there, because, frankly, as I said before, we went this way and went right to the edge of that wall, just to say, we saw the same thing. My gosh, use that side.
Right.
And,
but there's not really that much there.
There's not a whole lot. It's not a whole lot.
And the other question I had was, where is the staff going? We're saying that we're short of staff space and
they're here.
They're kind of storage space, but I don't see a big increase in the space.
Oh, believe me, there's.
What?
There is. I'll
okay,
fill
well
it
that's
up.
fine then.
What you see here is these are each little workstations.
Uh-huh.
And so I think there are 11 or 12 of them. There's now an office. There's a small little conference room, there's a staff toilet, there's a small little break room for them. And there's, quote, open space, there's plenty of book carts.
But there's also, the library now has, they have an office space and have a workroom, so where's the,
It's combined.
okay, so in fact, it's not that increased.
Oh, it is an increase. It's definitely an increase. Absolutely. Currently,
All
the
the
staff,
stuff that's stored in the workroom goes where?
are you talking about the room that I might call a
So all the
reference
magazines
room?
are in the book space?
All the
Oh.
banker
No, I'm talking
boxes?
about the room on the other side, behind the showcase. You know, as you
The
go.
periodical room,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
It's used for a variety of storage,
Right.
plus 2 staff workstations,
Yeah.
which would be coming over.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
But there's enough space.
Yeah, I think
there's no
so.
space for staff.
Okay.
Staff currently has like 10 square feet per person.
Oh, no, I know, it's terrible.
It's just
back
terrible.
there.
And so these are not huge. These are 36 square feet. These are 6 by 6 cubicles, just to
Oh.
give you a sense of scale.
Yeah, okay.
So they're not outrageous, and it's not an unusual size for other library systems. Yes, ma'am.
I understand that the senior room is part of the community center.
Correct.
And there are meetings in there, and people can come in at just about any hours and use the computers. I don't understand, in terms of library function, why there is a senior room there that is part of the library and still not part of the community center, unless it's possible to have access from the community center on the far side and not from the library.
That's exactly what's happening, because the door to this is off of this corridor, and that's why this door is here, so you can always access that community or the senior room as well as the office after hours or anytime you want. So frankly, it was moved from this window wall to begin to straighten out that corridor. And so, you know, perhaps it shouldn't have been colored the same color as the library, but it's in the same, I'll call it construction area, but it's totally independent at this point.
Doors in the corner, is it?
Yes, this is a door right here. I'm sorry?
This room on that.
This room is not part, this room is right over here someplace. It's right here, yeah, multipurpose. That's where we are. It's confusing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, not to beat a dead horse, because other people brought up some very good points about the sanctity of silence in the library, which has been in quite a bit of diminishment, and I want to echo what she says about Silver Spring. There's no attempt whatsoever. I've never
That's
seen
true.
a staff person say, and I've been over there quite a bit. And as to that whole question, well, the county had $70 million approximately, and we don't, so that's one reason why it ended up the way it is. But I'm concerned, you said several times that the roof is okay, and I'm wondering, has anyone actually been up in, and I take it there's steel structure, superstructure in this whole.
There's steel and wood holding
There's
up the
wood as
roof.
well?
Oh, yes.
Not a crisscross of steel
There's
patching?
bar joists as well as wood.
Because has someone actually been up there, an engineer, to take a good look at that?
I mean, I've walked the roof.
Well, no, I mean, in the crawl space.
There isn't any crawl space.
There's
It's
no
not
crawl
like this
space?
deep.
Oh, okay,
No.
I had a vision of.
That's one of the issues, that there is hardly any space above the drop ceiling in the library.
Okay.
There might be a foot, if that.
That's it?
And then you're right into the structure.
Because I'm very concerned about the diminution of quiet in the library.
Mhm.
The library is a sanctuary of quiet. You can either come in and learn, you can amuse yourself with different kinds of readings, and just relax yourself with
Right.
periodicals and those kind of things. And I want to echo the concern of the way that the children's section is entered into. And I wonder, is this new kind of all-purpose room up here, and again, I realize this is conceptual, but does the square footage roughly equal what we have now in the children's section?
It's actually larger.
But by a significant, it doesn't
Oh, it may
represent on
be.
that as being,
It may be 15 to 20% larger. Yeah, it is larger. It may not look it, but
setting up and taking down some sort of chairs.
yeah, I'm trying to think if I could give you a sense.
Is it as big as this room?
No.
Is this is,
that
I'm
all
sorry,
yours?
is this as big as that?
No, that one.
This room, let's see.
The program
Nine
was
by 10.
huge.
The program.
Yeah, this is like 7, 18, 20.
This room is about 25 by 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's call it, it's about 775 square feet or so. This room, I can't see whether it says 8 or 900. I can't read. Thank you.
Okay, so it's a little bit.
It's about this size.
Also, even if the children's room is bigger, you know, you've still got all this furniture that is just pushed aside. So for any given program, they're only using part of the children's room.
And the flooring, is it all gonna be carpeted? I mean, again, kids do like to sit on the floor.
Right. Typically, it would be. It really is up to getting to that point and discussing whether it ought to be or not.
And if I could point out one more thing.
Yes, sir.
Where that power splice box is,
Yeah.
the city has been remiss in allowing that garden to even exist there because at great taxpayer expense, there was a crisscross hatching of tiles put in to allow ingress egress in case of an emergency.
Huh.
And the guy that's doing the garden there took a bunch of them up. And
Oh,
I had
right.
words with him. I said, wait a minute, what are you doing here? So you would not be able to block the ingress egress to that
Correct.
splice box in case they have to get that thing in and out of there. It would be
Yeah,
a
no.
major job with a crane. So.
Agreed. It would not be easy. Yes.
Do you have space in the adult section for comfortable furniture? I remember you said people go to Starbucks to sit on the couches. And
Yes, there would
I
be.
know coffee shops are, when they have comfortable furniture, people like to hang out there now. Maybe that's not good for the coffee shop, but maybe for a library,
Yeah.
it's something we would.
No, there would be comfortable seating.
Ditches and places like, we even have one now, and it's,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see it all just tables.
No. It would definitely have comfortable chairs. Yeah.
You mentioned that you might repaint the stripes, and if I could put another plug-in for bikes, is if you connected the other side of the community center where there is a path around the basketball court that's protected for bikes to the other street that is a bicycle route through the city from the metro, and somehow are able to like bring it safely through that parking lot, it would be a great boon for the city and for the bike routes in the area. So,
Okay.
especially if you repaint, right?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Maybe you're not at this level yet, but I have a question and well, two questions. One, that little area that's near the bathrooms, I don't remember what that furniture, what that space was for. And the other is, how would be highlighting what's new? I mean, like, for example, I would love a wall of NPR Goodreads, you know, and know what are the best recommended books,
Right.
and have it be obvious. More like a bookstore presentation with face out. Same with the kids' books, and also maybe highlighting the things that they need to do their class assignments, working with the
Right.
teachers in the schools, so that you have all that great support structure. Because I've had parents tell me they have to go to other libraries for a lot of that, and yeah, pretty much. So display of new things, a display of events. 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper don't always catch my eye. I'd love to see what's new, what's coming to be really highlighted, maybe in the center in a kiosk-y type thing. I don't know.
Well, there are a lot of different ways people are doing it. Some people are putting in video screens, and just to enable you to do that. You know, we actually thought of this wall as a wall, or this wall, at least the back side of that wall, which could be for pamphlets, it could be events, so that when people come in, they, you know, see that. What this is because we have restrooms here, and I don't like doors to restrooms sort of being out in the space, this is sort of a 4 or 5 foot high wall, and so you can come behind it and go in the restrooms, and it hides noise and everything else. But this whole area was intended to be kind of a popular reading area, a place where this was display. It could be videos, it could be latest bestseller, but it would be some sort of a a browsing area of some sort. And, you know, people would see it as they go to the circ desk, to the program room, but it needs to be someplace where you discover that stuff. This may not be the actual, you know, shape or whatever, but totally agree that you need something like that to kind of market what's going on. Yes, sir.
Yeah, to your point, I was forced to go to the Gaithersburg Library today for training. It's a beautiful one-story building as opposed to the 60-floor Silver Spring Library, so you can find it. And they have as you walk in, there's a wonderful wraparound wall that has all the new books over there. You know, just beautiful presentation. So if we had something like that here, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I've not been in that library, but
gorgeous.
But it's the kind of thing that we'd like to do here, where you have that opportunity and also leads you someplace at the same time. Yes, ma'am.
I'm coming in late to this because I was away a lot of last year, and I absolutely support the display, if you will, marketing aspect to bring some excitement to this, not just expanding what we currently have. And I guess one of the things is that I want to also emphasize I support having more children involved and young people. You know, if you look here, we're all the boomers who, you know, we'll be maybe in with our canes in that senior room and we'll be filling it up. But we're not the ones in 10 or 20 years that will be necessarily using this. And I think also, there's a balance and there's so much conflict in the library field about how many books, how much technology, and what is the visible balance, even if we know you could get a book from any place. And I don't see that excitement of mixing technology and what is our future vision, so that in 10 or 20 years, we can build on or adapt to what will happen in the future. And that, I don't see that excitement here right now, but again, I probably don't have the imagination. The other thing is, in my mind, the entrance, it's almost like we should create excitement for this whole complex, that there ought to be like a big rotunda where you come in and you can go to the rec programs, you can go to the city services, you can go to the library and not have the entrance separated. Because for one thing, you want the library to be so visible that it becomes absolutely necessary and integral to the life of the city. And if you separate it again, even subtle ways, I think I'm new to this. I'm, you know, an old timer. I'm a retired librarian, worse yet. So I just see that integration and that excitement. I would hope that there'd be a way visually to develop that.
I mean, good suggestion as an architect. I would love to redesign the community center because I agree with you that there's no there, and but it's what it is, and it's not that.
That was the great vision.
Well, so and that's one of the things though that we've talked.
Another question.
Yeah.
This is not for you, maybe for Ellen and the NEC people here. One of the things is, having visited many libraries over the years, do we have the commitment for staffing, for supportive programming, for the technology needed to do this? We don't. I don't think this is so big. We're going to build it and then they cut staff, and you know, corners are not staffed. You have to close them down. But that has happened.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And we need that other kind of programmatic and staffing commitment, as well as I don't see like the hub for technology or other things. Things are miniaturized now, but that backup for technology, I don't see like, you know, the command room or the computer room, or, you know, others may know more about that than I do.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. We know that has to be placed. There is an existing kind of an IT room that needs to be replaced, and that will happen. Yes, ma'am.
I like her comment about this rotunda or whatever, some kind of a space that's the opening space. What if you flip this? I know you've done a lot of work, but what if you flip this And you know that, see that whole complex area up at the top with all the staff and where things are now, and we're kind of redesigning what's already there to fit, but maybe that should be the focal and the main entrance, go in that way, and then you come into the library to the different sections.
Yeah, one of the issues has always been that, I don't know, you probably don't know this, but there's this huge pit right here. It goes down a whole story, down to the, there's a mechanical space, and this actually mechanical space is half a level up, but it's still depressed by about 5 feet from the land around it. So we have to keep away from that.
I'm not telling you to go in there. I'm just saying where the staff room is and the elder.
You're talking about coming in kind of where you came in now.
If that became...
It's kind of what you've got today. It's kind of what you've got today, right? Right. You've got the...
Well, it doesn't have to look... That's a crappy rotunda. Okay. It doesn't have to be at that.
There's nothing that's higher.
Oops, sorry.
It's like, where am I?
Totally right.
And then where
I
understand what you're saying.
But the main presence of the library.
Well, I think previous comment about, arriving at something, frankly, we're trying to squeeze a lot of space in, but, that kind of space in this area to get into the library and connect with the other reception desk for the community center may be a good candidate for that.
I do still feel that there's, I would love to see metrics on this collection that we have now. That as much as you might have wonderful feelings about keeping a unique collection, I was in there the other day and I just decided to look at a couple of books and I said, what the heck are these? And I picked them out and I didn't recognize the author, and they were from 1970. It happened to be by the author of the guy who was famous for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. But that wasn't on the shelf. Some other lesser known, to me, books were on the shelf. I think it's really important to go through and see what's really important to keep. And even if you want to keep that much room, that doesn't mean we should keep what's there. And if you really have something that you found, and I did find some really cool books by a CIA officer in North Korea, okay? I really liked them. If we see these books haven't been taken out in 10 years, I think we need to take them out permanently.
Or maybe they're hard to find.
Yeah, I want to say something. I mean, I'm not a librarian, but I'm in the library a lot. First of all, there's a lot of culling that goes on all the time.
There's a lot of what?
And this is a librarian's issue. I don't think this is a design issue. Doesn't seem.
Oh, okay. I'm looking for metrics, not opinions. I'm looking for metrics.
I would just like to add, which was sort of what Meryl, I think, meant, is that weeding of collections is something that goes on all the time in libraries. And since we have the visioning process, a couple of years ago, we've been doing that much more aggressively. And, I think Lynn would endorse the fact that it's an important part of what staff does in libraries, just to make the collections viable. I can't say that there's nothing on our shelf that has yet to be weeded. It's an ongoing process, but we're very sensitive to that.
And is there a structural reason in the building as to why the bathrooms and the mechanical rooms are like in prime front door positions? I'm wondering if someone was referring to where the staff rooms being kind of like way back there, behind the program room and in that area. Is there any possibility that the staff rooms could be moved up closer to the interior, the main interior of the library, and sort of like reverse those functions?
Well, I mean, the staff, whoops, sorry, I keep hitting this thing. The staff is basically the part of the staff that does, I'll call backroom operations, doesn't really need to be close to the patron area. The interface between the staff and the patrons really is the circ desk or the information desk. So that has been pulled right smack dab into the middle of things. The issue with mechanical and toilets being kind of on an outside wall, all the existing plumbing, all the mechanical equipment, all that stuff, all the infrastructure for that is there. And so it made sense, because nobody has an unlimited budget, to try to take advantage of some of that. Now, if I was to start from scratch and there was no building there, I may not put that there. I totally agree with you, but that's why. And, you know, it may change, but that's really the reason why it's there. Yes, ma'am.
I am curious about the periodical collection.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of where do you envision it in this?
Well, typically, we would put it near windows where you could, you know, come in and sit and read a magazine and gaze out the windows. And so we would envision it being kind of in this quadrant. It's not really located
You
at this
need some
point.
wall space for it, though.
Yeah, well, you need space for the periodicals and that sort of thing. Absolutely.
And I thought that was going to be a glass.
Well, you know, you can always do the wall behind, or, you know, parallel. So lots of different ways we can do that.
Are any of the stacks, either in the children's library or in the main library or anywhere, are some of them movable?
You know, we haven't gotten to that point. We certainly have designed movable shelving. I guess there is movable shelving currently in the children's area, partly to get it out of the way.
Because it's on wheel.
Right. So, yeah, that's something that we would get into when we get into furniture and the need for that flexibility. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Do we know what, I meant to ask it the last time, do we know how many line foot of shelving we have currently? Both broken down between the children's section and
I believe I do, but I don't have
section.
that on the top of my head.
Right, no, I didn't expect you to have it, but I would like to know if we're gonna, you know, where it's gonna be in ratio to redo versus what we got now.
I'll try to have that information. I just don't have it.
And I also, I just have some trepidation now that you told me that I always assumed there was some kind of a crawl space, perhaps, albeit not very high. And I'm concerned about the roof.
I think
And I'm wondering if
Ian
there-
has to go back on the roof.
Well, no, I don't want to go on the roof, and I'm disappointed that they maintained those solar panels, because the roof was quite frankly not designed for that. And I remember when they put them up there, they put a bunch of cinder blocks. So I'm concerned that there needs to be some kind of assessment done.
I'm assuming that the town did an assessment before the solar panels were put on the roof. I can't answer that
I don't think there was, to
question.
be quite frank. And I wonder if there's some way with a video probe or something along those lines to get in and look, because it is 60-some years old.
Yeah, I mean,
And that roof does leak on occasion. Ellen will testify to that. So I don't know what the age of that roof. I think it's at least 15 years old, something like that. So
I can't answer that, but I know that we've
I
talked to
would
the
hope
town.
that somewhere in this work that that roof would be given a nose flat and squint and made sure that after we've done all this expensive renovation.
Oh, absolutely.
That roof is going to not have issues regarding failure of some sort, whether we get a major snow load or whatever. So
No.
you're the architect. I don't know how they would go about looking at something like that, other than ripping it up. I certainly don't.
No, like I said, I'm assuming that an assessment was done at the time the solar panels were put
I
on.
don't think it was. I really don't. But I will inquire about that, and perhaps Ellen could inquire as well.
About when the roof was put on?
Well, when the roof was put on, but more importantly, what was the original design load for the roof? Because that solar panels are not light. And I don't think that they really did any kind of assessment, to be honest. And I don't think they've done any assessment since to see whether the roof is faring well with that additional load.
Right, I'm sure the information could be.
And we haven't had any really big, giant 3-foot snowfalls with sleet and whatever on top of it. Because I have seen roofs cave in. They do it does happen, even on public buildings.
Oh, yes, they do.
And that would be quite a disaster on the library. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like it's just clothing and book, such a sort. There would be books, which would be pretty much hard to replace a lot of them. But thank you for coming out on this
Thank you very much.
precious evening.
Well, thanks for all coming.
Yeah, thank you.
We got some good notes. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yes.
Is there some, now they have paperback books in certain areas. Is that